Namaste and welcome to this monthly Satsang Q&A. And it's volume 5, this one. And if you're new to our channel here, you're very welcome. And what I try to do once a month is any questions that have been sent in through our Satsang page on our website, we read them and record them here on a session like this. So if you would like to send a question in, you can go to helenhamilton.org. And then in the little menu on the right-hand side, you can click on the Satsang option. And if you scroll down on that page, there's an option to send in a question. It'll be always read out anonymously and answered. And please do try to make your question concise with a clear question. So that helps us to get through more questions. So we'll get to it. I have Anish here with me today, who's going to read the questions for me. So whenever you're ready, Anish, if you'd like to get started, thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen. First question for today is, I have been practicing meditation for about 30 years, based primarily on Buddhist teachings. And I also really like the Advaita philosophy and that of non-duality. I've had several experiences of knowing who I really am and living non-duality. There is no one. We are all everything. But at the same time, I have stages with very egotistical and negative minds, fear. I don't like being the drop that melts in the ocean, anxiety, depression, insomnia, problems. I have no doubt that all beings are destined for enlightenment with our true nature, but I am still on the way.
So it's very normal to have these kind of challenges come up. As we see clearer who we are, it becomes more and more obvious that we have this old idea of ourself still functioning. The imaginary one who doesn't want to dissolve into the ocean still is given some reality, some validity. And so the thing I would suggest for this is to either look at the fear and whichever other emotional issues arise with these old remnants of the separate self through contemplation. And there is a contemplation playlist, some study sessions here on the YouTube channel. If you click on the playlists, you'll see contemplation and study sessions that will show you how to work with the fear. Or you can also go directly to self-inquiry if you feel that that is more potent for you to really finish up shifting over the identity from the separate sense of self to living as the infinite self more often, to removing the last few ways that we think of ourselves as a someone, which is all that this is as it pops up. Of course, it doesn't feel good, but it's very, very normal. And so I'd recommend contemplation here, or self-inquiry, or both, if you feel you want to get this finished. So take a look at the YouTube playlist on here. Thanks, Anish.
Next question. Lately, my meditation practice is fundamentally to be in the eternal present, without judging, without rejecting anything, without reacting mentally to thoughts as much as I can with what I do. Also trying to see in others, in everything, the ultimate truth. Responding with peace to different situations and mental states. Being in being. I am life. I am peace. I am love. My question is how to more easily accept this duality between the character and his negative minds and consciousness.
Thank you. And to realize that we are not the one that needs to accept anything is the key. There is a lingering identity, as I was just saying in answer to the previous question, that really feels it has to deal with the remnants of the separate self, the old ways of thinking. And that one that says, how do I accept? That is the old sense of self. The real self, the awareness, the presence, the silence that you are, is totally already at peace with any ego remnants, any separate self remnants that pop up. And so, looking and seeing if this is even your work to do you have to accept this or come to peace with this? Um, the character and the negative aspects of that, the sense of separate self you're calling the character here, and the one who's trying to accept it are all the same imagined entity. And if that isn't fully clear from listening to this, I would really suggest trying to find that one that needs to accept it by looking in our self-inquiry. And again, the self-inquiry playlist here on the YouTube channel if you would like to have a look at how to do that. There's again some study sessions we've done with that. But most of all, to recognize that the one who wants to accept is equally fictional. Thanks, Anish.
Dear Helen, your words sing truth to me. So many make awakening into very complicated and hard, almost unachievable in eons as the Zen vows go. That has never made sense to me. Your words do. Thank you. I would like to know your experience of jhanas, chi, reiki, and kundalini experienced by the body. At times, it feels like an alien birthing out of my spine, like in a Star Trek episode. Thank you again, Helen. I totally get you.
Another Star Trek fan. Thank you for your kind words. Um, it was similar for me sometimes with the Kundalini. But what began to become clear is it's not the Kundalini that's the problem. It is the beliefs that we're holding on to that remain from the sense of a separate self that we're still identifying with and as that create these lower frequencies that slow down the flow. If the energy of the Kundalini is trying to go straight up the channel through the spine, inside the spine itself. And if you imagine it like a fast flowing river, any belief that we're not good enough or that we're not safe, basically that we're limited in any way at all, any belief in separation is going to be like a big boulder in the middle of this fast flowing river. And what we feel is that when the fast flowing water smashes up against the boulder, those are the that's why we have the process here in these teachings of contemplation. And I would really suggest having a look at that, looking by emotion, looking at the emotions that you want to feel, don't want to feel rather, and using the contemplation process to allow yourself to live as the infinite self when there is no slower frequencies in that system. And not just up the spinal channel itself. The contemplation and the Kundalini will clear through the chakras, the subtle tissue, subtle pathways of energy, like the meridians. It will clear through the physical body, through the mind, and through the emotions too. So we only need to remove the obstacles to its clear and easy and blissful flow. And that's what we do with our self-inquiry and with our contemplation. So again, I'd suggest looking at the channel here and diving into some of the self-inquiry and contemplation if you haven't already. Thanks, Anish.
Next question. After a miscarriage and breakup with my partner, I now I'm now left with nothing at 42 years old. I wished so much for a child my whole life. How can I find with the fact that this wish won't ever come true for me.
I am sorry for your situation that you are in, but it's my uh, role to say something that might be a little controversial in this situation, and saying it out of compassion for you so that you can come to the end of suffering as quickly as possible. And the real issue here I would like to suggest is that you feel you have to come to peace with this situation. You asked, how can I come to peace with this? And that is only going to be clear by recognizing yourself to be the one from which all desires arise and all manifestation springs. So rather than trying to come to peace with the fact that the desire hasn't occurred, can you recognize that you are, of course, yourself, and any child that would have been born to you would also be arising out of yourself. These bodies play roles of parent and child, and it's roles we begin to identify with, but they aren't who we are. They are what the body does. And of course, we would like to have our desires fulfilled, but I'd like to really suggest that that's not why you're upset. That's not why you are disturbed. The disturbance is always and only the sense of separation that really wants this thing and this desire and feels that it cannot be happy without it. There's no way to resolve that. But from who you really are, you'll see that you're already at peace no matter what is going on within your life. And you begin to recognize that you are all beings and all children. All parents are you. All children are you. It's a much bigger vision and a capacity to be at peace no matter what is happening in the everyday life that we have. It doesn't mean we like everything that happens to us, of course, but there is an equanimity and a peace that's available. So I would really suggest looking at who is this one that wants to find peace, and seeing if you can really find that separate person. Thanks so much, Anish.
Hello, Helen. With very much appreciation to you and your team for making these insights available to us. Please, would you share your understanding and experience of the place of responsibility in our lives? That is, are we responsible? And if so, for what? And if we are not responsible, how come? And how then do we live our lives with gratitude?
Yeah, so responsibility is a very heavy burden that we carry when we think we are a separate person, as someone, and it tortures our every waking moment to some degree or another. But as we begin to wake up to who we really are, we'll see that our responsibility is actually an ability to have a response from the authentic self. We can either react to something as a separate sense of self, as someone that we thought we were, or we can meet that event, that person, that thing from the infinite self. We are response able to come from the real authentic nature. So in that situation, during our awakening, as it blossoms, we begin to realize that perhaps our responsibility, if we have any, is only where our attention is, to see where our attention is. Am I letting my attention linger on the old sense of self that I'm seeing is increasingly untrue? In which case, my body will surely tell me very quickly. There'll be some negative emotion, contraction, all of that in the body, the general discontentment. But if my attention is on what's real, there will be a peace and equanimity, emerging joy and love, no matter what is going on, what the body has to go through and experience. From a separate sense of self, there's never enough time to do everything we think we have to. From the perspective of who we really are, the one being, the pure presence that we are, Everything is simply unfolding inside as we watch the play of manifestation in front of us. And it doesn't mean that we don't care and we're not responsible for those that depend upon us, but that caring and that love is coming from such a rich and deep place within us. And there's a wellspring of resources that come from there, including all the time we could need, all the resources, the energy, all of it to do whatever. Um, and we still, of course, have a human life and we embrace that and the apparent responsibilities of that. As I was saying to a previous questioner, the responsibility of being a parent, for example. But the only difference is we can embrace that from a much richer place inside of us, where it's a joy, an unfolding of love emerging as a seeming relationship rather than a personal separate self that feels responsible for something or someone. So hope that helps. Thanks, Anish.
Helen, thank you so much for your work. My question is, I find it hard to be present when I am with someone or in a group. I am thinking while they are talking, and I lose my presence. How could I be in myself?
It's a very good question, and I'd like to challenge it with a different question. That to ask ourselves, can I lose my presence? And I had to ask myself this question because just like you were saying, when certain emotions are arising or with certain beings in certain situations or feeling that I needed something, either an inner or outer resource, there was a definite experience again and again and again of losing my presence, the presence, and feeling very much disconnected from it. Finally, I came to see that actually it's because I believe I can lose this presence that I have to keep experiencing that. It's nothing to do with what's going on in my actual experience in that moment. So I'm not losing the presence because of the person I'm talking to or the presence of thoughts in my mind. I'm losing the presence because I think I can lose the presence. And this is a very fine and subtle identity that we hold on to. I need to get back to the presence, and now I have got back into it. I can be in it. I can lose it. All of that is coming from the separate sense of self. You are presence, in which attention wanders around from looking at you, the presence, to looking at thoughts, people, things, emotions, all kinds of phenomena, then back to you, the presence, then back to phenomena, or on and on it goes. And so, if you can begin to recognize that this isn't your problem, and you can do that by questioning, can I even lose presence? Even though I keep experiencing that, I'm not going to let my experience dictate what I can believe to be true. What we experience is a reflection of what ideas we're holding onto from the separate sense of self. And here, a very subtle idea. And this caught me too, of course, so many times until I finally realized this isn't my problem. The more I try to stay in presence or get back to presence, the more I'm going to have to experience being separate to it, losing it, gaining it, losing it, all of those things. So perhaps if this feels alive for you, asking yourself this question, can I really lose presence? And staying with that each day for a little time each day until you're really certain that you cannot lose what you are. If you were someone trying to reach the presence, then absolutely you could lose it. But you are presence, and that changes everything. So much easier than we thought. Thanks, Anish.
Hello, Helen. You came into my life just 4 or 5 months ago, and you're helping me a lot in my awakening. Although I had a lot of theory under my belt, I was missing that experience with reality the way you do. I'm very grateful to you for that. My question is about one of my sons, for whom I started my spiritual journey 15 years ago, but I still haven't let go completely. I'm still worried about his future because I see him without any great internal motivations. And he's basically motivated by things like having a good time, partying, alcohol, and a job as comfortable as possible that allows him to cover his expenses and little else. I am worried that he does not take care of himself physically, mentally, or emotionally. I fear that at some point this will take its toll on him, and he and his entire family will have to suffer with him. As I write, my mind tells me, even mockingly, but don't you say that there is no future and that we are safe? Where is the problem? But I don't know how to stop it, and it drags me along. My question is whether I should talk to him. I have a deep desire to have a deep conversation with him, one of those that touches the soul. But I don't feel ready, and I think it could be counterproductive. And if not, what do you think I can do to live with the situation more peacefully? Thank you very much for your response. I am convinced that it will be of great help to me. Lots of love.
Well, thank you for your kind words. And I'm going to say a few things that might be a little shocking, but with again, the greatest compassion. I'd like to say that you didn't start your spiritual search for your son. It started by itself, spontaneously. The mind was just looking for a reason. And perhaps a lot of the thoughts that you've been looking at during that time have been about your son, but always and only the infinite self that we are is calling to itself to wake up to who it really is. And that's what starts the journey. And the completion of this journey will be also a deep recognition that not only are you this infinite self, that so is your son also. And of course, you want the best for him. But what's the best way now to have that happen? And of course, I can't tell you what to do, whether to talk to him or not, because I don't know. But I can tell you what to be, and that is to not divide yourself in your thought process, to divide yourself from him. If you still think about him a lot, it's because you still feel separate to him. So you're as being a separate being, living as a separate being. You're never actually, of course. And you're thinking about him as a separate being. And so we're still thinking ourselves to be an object, a phenomenon, looking at another object, a phenomenon, our children. And of course, I had to really look at this myself with 4 children. So you could ask this question, is he really separate to you? Is your son really separate to you? Because if he's separate to you, then he's outside of your control and your influence. But if, in fact, he is yourself, you are showing up as both bodies, the parent and the child, then everything you're realizing in your spiritual journey is automatically available to him to the extent that he's ready to absorb this. And the transmission that's coming from you as you refuse to feel separate to him. Actually, all the worry and the concern is not even actually for your son. It's because of the sense of separation. It drops the life force in the body and we feel terrible. And again, might be shocking, but again, it's my job to say something that different and perhaps what we are expecting and answer. And I love your openness. So I had to realize that if I keep thinking about my children, I'm artificially separating myself from them, closing my energy off from them. And then the fruits and the benefits of my awakening cannot pass to them. This isn't just happening with our children, of course, it's happening with everyone around us, and eventually the whole of humanity when we realize you are all of humanity. And even before you have that conversation with him, whenever that happens, it could be tomorrow, it could be 10 years from now, who knows? But what you have seen to be true is going to be silently radiating to him, being absorbed on a level that is underneath his mind, his conscious mind, which would object, I don't like that spirituality stuff, or stop, talking to me about your meditation and think whatever he might say. I'm not interested in listening to that right now, etc. So the best thing you can do is see who you really are and then see that he's also you. This question, is he really separate to me, is very, very valuable. Also, for me, when I was in my self-inquiry, and of course, there are playlists on here of how to work with self-inquiry as we do it here. You can actually see, if you see yourself to be formless, see where that formlessness stops. Does it stop where your sun starts? Or is there just one being? And this will really change everything. So, hope that helps as one parent to another. I feel your situation, and but this is the fastest and best way to help them that I've ever found. Thanks, Anish.
Dear Helen, much gratitude to you and your team for making these insights available to us. Please, would you say something about the so-called will? It seems as though some people have strong wills. They are active and decisive and appear to achieve a lot and to overcome perceived obstacles. Other people might be described as having less strong wills or as having less willpower. They may appear more passive, less decisive, perhaps. By strengthening our will, we are considered to be more able to engage and experience a stronger sense of purpose. Yet, from what I've heard so far, this teaching does not include the element of will. Deep thanks.
Yeah, it's not a word that I use very often, will, because um, for me it always elicited a sense of someone that had to do something, willpower, and all of those. But really, our will be strong when it is the will of the self, of God, of the presence. And those obstacles will be overcome easily and even used to accelerate our spiritual growth when we have realized who we are. So, the situation you were describing, the one with the strong will who seems to achieve a lot and is somehow this unrelenting positive force in the world, is really coming from a place where there are not many thoughts in the way at all, or none, that are diminishing the manifestation of what arises. So the manifestation of whatever we want in our life is always being held back and diminished by what thoughts we're believing. And most of all, this idea that we're a separate self. And when that has stopped happening, that one will have the merest intention for something will show up in their lives, because it is the intention or the desire for something that we want, or something that we want to achieve, is clearly recognized to be the will of God, to be the will of the divine, that they are one and the same. This unites and heals the solar plexus chakra in our subtle system by the navel, and lights a fire in there that really seems to make everything happen really quite effortlessly and joyfully. So, the will is just another attribute, if you would, of the infinite self. And it will all, there'll always be a strong will when you know who you really are. Anytime there seems to be a weak will, or things don't get manifested or achieved that we want, or there seems to be an infinite number of obstacles in the way, it's simply because we're trying to do something from a sense of separation. The desire for it to happen is coming from your real self, always. But this sense of a separate self really diminishes the amount of life force we have to achieve what we want. So, hope that helps. Thanks, Anish.
Helen, I'm deeply grateful to have found you a few months ago. Thank you for your presence. I'd like to hear your perspective on what we call illness when it occurs in a cat. If there is only one being, my cat would clearly be reflecting a belief of mine, right? One of her eyes changed color and she developed some spots. I'm caring for her through different natural means, trying to observe what the whole situation is telling me. I'd love to know if you've had a similar experience and how you've approached it. A very warm hug to you and the entire team.
Thank you. So, of course, with our pets or anyone, any healing that is needed on a physical level is, of course, advised. Um, but when we say the illness is a reflection of a belief that I am holding inside, notice that we tend to separate ourselves in that sentence. We tend to be a separate being that is holding a belief that is causing some illness, apparently, in the cat, in our beloved pets. And for me, I had to really look at this. I've always had cats. My parents just loved cats when we were growing up, and I still have one now. I used to have two, but one of them left his body. They're both quite elderly. Well, they were elderly. The one remaining one, she's really quite old now. And it came up several times in my own journey like this when something would pop up. And I began to see that the issue was a reflection of a belief being held inside me, like you said, but not me as a separate self. So, me as the infinite self, me as the source of all creation. When I appear in human form, all human forms, I have lots of ideas about myself. And these ideas reflect in all creation, as a cat, perhaps as an illness, as a plant, perhaps some brown spotting on a leaf, or being eaten by an animal or an insect or something, as a human being, a sense of fatigue. So the inside, the one who has the belief, if you imagine two circles, one circle like this, if you had a piece of paper and you do a circle, this would be the inside where the belief is. And then the outside would be the outer realm where the manifestation or reflection of that belief happens. So you have two circles, inside, outside. What we usually do is make ourselves a separate being. This is my belief, me, the separate being. I have caused this to happen to someone or something else. And that is really, really impossible because you're not separate to your cat. You are your cat. Your cat is you. Strange, I know, but or maybe not so strange for pet lovers. The definite oneness there. But if you notice that the way you tend to think about this is as a separate being, what am I thinking, believing, holding on to that's reflecting as this in this other being, in this pet? It can't be true, can it? Really, the first circle is all of humanity's thinking and feeling, all of it. And any energies at all in the subtle realms of thoughts, emotions, any and all vibration in the entire cosmos is in this first circle. And the second circle is all of the universe. So when we do our spiritual work, for example, if we contemplate, which is what I did when I saw these things popping up, fear, when there was something wrong with one of my pets, there'd be fear. There'd also be shame. My mind would say, I'm ashamed because this thing has happened to my cat. Really, there's just the vibration of shame in the ether of human consciousness. And as we do our contemplation, we're not a separate self. contemplating. We are the universe contemplating, and that puts a whole different spin on it. When you contemplate to help your cat and yourself, of course, you're actually helping everything, the big circle. It's huge, right? When you get this, the consequences, the ramifications of this. Nobody has ever done any spiritual practice. No person has ever done any spiritual practice. It's always been the infinite cosmos contemplating. So, hope that helps in how to reframe it. And then there's a understanding that whatever remains in our beloved pets and the rest of creation from there is perhaps what needs to happen for who knows what reason. But the best part is there won't be any guilt or shame or fear inside you, and you'll be able to allow in the resources, the information, and everything you need to take the best possible care of your beloved pet. Thanks, Anish.
Thank you, Helen, and your team, and all who participate with you in exploration and inquiry. Please, would you say something about what memory is, if there is no time and therefore no past, with gratitude and love?
Yeah, thank you. Memory is simply thought. A memory of a previous event is simply a thought or a mental image or a series of images based on the story that the mind made, the photographic psychological picture we made of a previous event that happened. When that event happened, it felt like it was happening now. Right now, as we're discussing, there's a sense of this present moment here as you're listening to this. Tomorrow, if you come and remember what you heard 24 hours from watching it, it will feel like the past. But right now, there's only this present moment, as you said, and it's continuous and ongoing. So memory is really just a set of thoughts and stories that usually our mind holds on to as a separate being. We're constantly trying to rewrite those memories to make them feel better for us. And, the science has proved that memory is a very fluid thing. Even a memory of the same event from the same person is different every time it is remembered. It's altered subtly. And without getting into all the ramifications of that. But if we can see that it's simply mind's attempt to feel better about something, and that if the memory is a bad memory, we might not even want to remember it. Bad only because of the story we told about it, that we are a separate being experiencing something that we do not like or want. So it's really just a thought and some mental pictures, isn't it, that happen now. I can remember something that apparently happened 20 years ago. But right now, as I remember it, it's just a thought and some images happening inside me right now. Does that have anything to do with the actual event 20 years ago? Nothing. Nothing at all. In fact, if I could admit that the way I remember it probably is very different to how it actually happened, then it's easier to just kind of have more relaxation around the memory. And similarly for the future as well, any fears or anticipations for the future. When we actually get there, it will be now. And it'll have that sense of alive presentness. Thanks, Anish.
Dear Helen, thank you with all my heart for your teachings. There is a fire that's been burning for years to truly know what happens to awareness of being in the unique situation of surgical anesthesia. Many have had the unsettling experience of going from awareness of the surgery about to start and then magically somehow instantly being in the recovery room. Being or awareness feels so perfectly intact and seamless that patients often think surgery never took place. Yet evidence shows surgery did happen. This is not to be confused with sleep where there is a sense of continuity, perhaps with dreams providing a bridge or explanation for the gap. This surgical experience felt like life itself went under the knife, and it shook me to my core 2 decades ago. I haven't been able to fully trust awareness ever since because the I amness felt pricked somehow. Yet, despite this disjointed occurrence, there is nonetheless a deep knowing beyond the mind that awareness is all there is. Can you please help to understand where being went during the surgery?
So, um, the awareness or being, as you're calling it, we come to intuitively know that we can rely upon it. It's the only thing that is constantly there and never goes. And of course, whenever it seems to go like this, it will be very disturbing for us because we've hung our hat on it, right? This is our home and this is what I really am. But in times of deep sleep, even in between those dream states, even in deep meditation, during anesthesia, under anesthesia, there is no sense of any continuity. And we must distinguish between the waking state and awareness or beingness. The waking state is what disappears during anesthesia, right? The awareness still remains, the beingness still remains. The beingness is that in which the theatre and the surgeons and the patient and the whole universe show up in. The empty nothingness in which all of the universe is appearing in is what you really are. What disappears under anesthesia then is the waking state, which is the sense of a someone that seems to arise in a morning. We feel like we wake up in a morning and we feel like we go to sleep at night. And as you said, during the night, the dream state seems to give some sense of continuity. But you can't account for the whole 8 hours. There was some of that where there was no sense of time, no change, no duality, nothing, no sense perception, memory, all of that is gone in deep sleep, in deep meditation, and also under anesthesia. The difference being that in a deep meditation or awakening as it stabilizes, there is always recognition of that real awareness, real being. So if we take this example that you gave of the surgery itself, it seems to be that you had no experience at all during that time. As you said, life itself seems like it went under the surgeon's knife, under anesthetic. But you know that you did not know anything through the senses, through the mind, through the experience. You know for that time there was no sense of time during the anesthetic. Between, the counting down as the anesthetic or whichever way it happens starts to take hold, waking up in the recovery room, there was no duality, no time, no change, just the infinite emptiness, awareness, beingness in which the recovery room and the theatre, the surgical theatre, was appearing in, and everything inside them, everything else. So something was not gone. It's hard to recognize that there's something that was not gone while we're identifying with the waking state. What disappears is the waking state. But it's not real anyway, the waking state. You are that in which the waking state, the deep sleep, and the dreaming is happening. Those three states are rotating in front of you constantly. And you are that which sees them all. And it's not a personal seeing. And it doesn't come with any sense of time or change or duality. It just is. It's like the empty space in the room you're sitting in right now. If I was to give you an anesthetic now as we're talking, You would lose all sense perception, memory, and all of that. But the empty space in which the room that we were sitting in would not disappear. It would still be here. If we took the whole room away right now and everything in it, what remained is the real being. If we took the room, we emptied it completely and the room away itself, the walls and everything, what remains is yourself. And then the theatre and the anesthetic and everything that you are showing up as are still there then. So they appear inside of you as shapes you're making. So this thing that seems to have gone is not the real awareness. If it was, we'd be in trouble because it can come and go. So what is it that doesn't go? Hopefully something I've said here has really prompted something, but please do write back in if you need some more help. Thanks, Anish.
Is sensing the real self the same as being aware of the bodily senses? If not, please clarify the difference and instruct on how to sense the real self. Thanks for all you do.
Wonderful. So thank you. That which knows what the senses are perceiving is the real self, that which is aware of. So right now, you can see what your eyes are seeing. That which sees what the eyes are seeing is the real you, awareness. And if you close your eyes, you can see that you can't see through your eyes. There's still a seeing there, isn't there? Still awareness that the eyes are closed or open. Similarly, you can hear these words coming in through your ears. Something knows the presence of the words. And if I stop talking, something knows the absence of words, silence. And you can do this too if you look also with the other senses, the contact that your body is making with the chair that you're sitting in. You can feel that sensation. That which knows that sensation is who you really are. So just checking it out like this is really quite helpful. That which knows the senses, that which sees thoughts come and go, that which notices an emotion arise, that's who you really are. And it's invisible and intangible and totally beyond any coming and going. Thanks, Anish.
Dear Helen, I would like you to guide me in two situations. The first is that I don't know how to heal my relationship with my 6-year-old daughter. I feel so much love for her. It's an obsession. I'm terribly afraid that she'll suffer, and I've subordinated my life to what makes her happy, what doesn't make her suffer. I'm so terribly afraid that she'll suffer that I even want to control what people say to her. I don't know how to deal with this. I've thought that fear says I'm not safe and I'm in danger, but the fear is of my daughter, that something will happen to her, and above all, that she will suffer. On the other hand, I have a feeling of wanting to escape from life. It's very difficult for me. It seems to me that it's full of challenges. For me, anything is a challenge, and it's difficult and hard. I feel like I want to disappear, and in the not so bad moments, rewind to start my life all over again to see if it turns out better this time. I don't know how to handle these situations through contemplation or self inquiry, but I do need to be at peace. Meditating is the only way I achieve that. But being in life is hard for me. I can't be in the consciousness that I am, and the character overwhelms me in my daily life. Could you please help me? Thank you so much and love you so much.
I love you too. And I would really suggest, first of all, going back and listening to a previous answer I gave in this recording for a person that wrote in about very similar worries for their son. So the advice that I gave to that person will be also good here. But most of all, to question this one who is struggling, the one who's worried for your child, the one who can't cope with life, the one who wants to start over again, the one who's sure that it's going wrong, life is going wrong, is the one that we need to doubt. We usually identify with that sense of self, and then we doubt our ability to cope with the world, with our experience, to look after our children, and all of that stuff. But have you ever actually found that version of yourself? You said that you struggle with self-inquiry. Let's do it now. Have a look now and see if you can find that one. The one who is desperately trying to help and wanting to control your child's experience. Where is it? If you really look deep within, not thinking about it, but look and try to find it somewhere in your body. Where is this person? All you'll find are thoughts, sensations, emotions, desires. But who do they belong to? Can you find a separate entity to whom they belong? And as we look, we'll begin to see that there's just a sense of a separate person, a sense, just a sensation in the body, a certain, what we've called a person that we're so desperately trying to get away from is nothing other than some contractions in the body, some thoughts, and some emotions. That doesn't equal a person. So, looking like this, just trying to find where that person is. It's not in your head, except as a thought, which is coming and going all the time. Where are you? Are you inside the head? When you have some fear, are you in the belly? Can you find exactly where you are? And this may be a strange question to ask, but it's really worth exploring to win your freedom back. I had to look like this, right? Because I had 4 children of my own and went through this exact same situation. But the good news is, as I said to the previous questioner, that as you look and don't find a person, you're waking up to who you really are, and that your children are you, and therefore are protected by your realization. All those beings around an awakening being are blessed by that being's awakening, and their lives and paths are changed because of it. So even if you struggle with self-inquiry, have another go, knowing that you don't have to get it right, knowing that the intent, the deep desire to see who you are will overcome all obstacles, inside and outside, because it really is the real infinite self calling to itself. It's time to wake up. And then being a beneficial presence just by what you have seen yourself to be helps everyone, including your children. So have a go. There's some self-inquiry playlists here on the YouTube channel. And just listen and watch, try to follow along without needing to get it right. Self-inquiry isn't about getting the right answers. It's about wanting to question what we have always thought was true, and that's that I know what I am. I am this person that's trying to reach awakening or trying to make my child's life better. What if that's never been who you are? What if you're something so much bigger than that? That the recognition of that automatically benefits your child. Thanks, Anish.
Second last question. I have noticed that at times I am well at peace and happiness. And at times I have felt like there is no point in living. I have been following you for a short while, and I have heard that you have said that this happens. I managed to follow your instructions to know what I am, and it is the most important thing that has happened to me. I recognize that. So that a few minutes or hours later, the feeling returns that what I am not is what I am. Thank you from Venezuela.
So I'm really glad you've been able to see who you are, even for a short while. And when that feeling returns of the old sense of self, we can simply do whatever we can to come back to what's real as soon as we can. So the feeling will return to prompt us to some deeper seeing, deeper self-inquiry. So doing the same thing again, seeing, trying to find a separate person again, and also exploring in those quieter moments what is real about you, and is it affected by these feelings? Is it affected by the sense of a separate being when it arises? Because when there's just the experience of who you are, the consciousness, the awakeness, the awareness, there's no problem at all, we feel. But then when the sense of a separate self arises, we immediately look at it and go, it should go away. And of course, that makes us feel a sense of separation. There's me and something that I need to get rid of. Then there's two things. We're in duality again, apparently. So see if the real self is affected or even needs to get rid of the ego. Or has it not always just been lovingly allowing the ego or the separate sense of self to be whatever it is in any particular moment? And really, the real self remains unaffected, whether the sense of separation is there or not. The same equanimity is possible. And we're only disturbed when this old idea of ourself arises, not because it arises, but because we think we need to get rid of it. If we simply let it arise, it would disappear again. It only seems to get worse because we're pushing against it and being a person again ourselves that is pushing against something else. So it's backwards and forwards like this for a little while until we see that who we really are isn't affected by anything that happens in the phenomenal universe at all. I just urge you to go a little deeper into your seeing, just to finish this off completely, to recognize that whether there's a sense of separation there or not, you are still completely free and untouched by it. It's good to have that certainty, right? And that's what this is coming up again for. So you can look more deeply and say, is there anything I need to do about this? Is this my issue as the real consciousness? Thanks, Anish.
Good afternoon, Helen. On the self-inquiry question, is it really true that I need? Question mark. You said it should be done over 30 days. If during this period something comes to mind that makes you change the question, do I change it or stick with the first one until the 30 days are up? Thank you very much. A hug.
Thanks, and a really good question that helps us all. So if it is your first, if it is your first 30 days with this question, I would not change it at all. And there might be many suggestions that you need to change it or better questions coming seemingly. If it's not your first 30 days and you're continuing, you've reached 30 days with this question and you're continuing past into day 31 and so on, then if a new question seems to arise, that the urge is to change the question into this new one, you can ask your body can tell you. So you can say, should I change this question? Or should I change to this question? And then listen and feel. And your body will give you a yes or a no. Another way you can do it is to ask your body, I want to change to the new question. Is this wisdom or guidance? And then listen and feel. Or is this resistance? Am I sabotaging myself? And then listen and feel. Your body will have its own unique yes and no signal. And you can get used to it by playing around with some obvious questions. So if I ask myself, is my name Helen? There's a particular feeling, a sensation, and an up leveling of life force because it's true. If I ask myself, so that's my yes. If I ask myself, is my name George? There's a slight diminishment of life force because that's not true for this body mind. And if you ask obvious questions, do I live in wherever you live? You'll get another clear yes. Do I live in, some other place away from where you live? So test it with some easy questions like this. And then when it comes to asking, should I change this question, you'll be used to what your yes feels like and what your no feels like. So have a little play with this. Your body knows the truth. It is the truth. It knows exactly which question is best for you. And we felt this anyway when perhaps we were listening to a satsang and some question is suggested to you, to someone else, and you're just listening. And the question, something resonates within in you, right? You go, wow, that's a really exciting question. That's your body's yes, even though that question was for someone else, apparently. Your body is made of consciousness, presence, truth, and it knows the truth and it will tell you. It's always the best guide. Um, Very rarely do we know how to listen to it. Something I had to learn as well. So have a go with that. But in general, I would say not to change it the first 30 days. Most often, we change the question as a way that our sense of unworthiness is sabotaging our um, consistency. And consistency is the most important thing. Thank you so much, Anish, for reading the questions so beautifully. And thank you all for what you have sent in. Um, we will do another one at the end of April. And if you do have a question that you'd like me to address, you can send it in using the form on the Satsang page at helenhamilton.org. They're always read out anonymously, as I said at the beginning. So please try to keep them concise. And maybe it's simply that you can't attend a satsang live, you'd like it answered. And then at the end of April, we'll get together and record the answer to all of these. Thank you so much and have a wonderful month until we do this again. Thank you. Namaste.